25% of all UN employees are Palestinians living in Gaza. So yes, I'll rephrase it again. 1 in every 4 UN staff members are Palestinians in Gaza. So this has a name in the business world, in any given world, called conflict of interest. So it's not only the UNRWA, which is obviously a disproportionate in size, a big agency that we know that the UN has two ways of dealing with refugees, one for the Palestinians and one for the rest of the world. So the one caring for the rest of the world is taking care of 75 million almost refugees, is one agency that has half of the budget and half of the employees. And then you have the Palestinian specialized one that doubles the budget, doubles the employees. And not only that, it turns out to be the biggest agency of all the UN and one of the biggest agencies in the whole world. And not only that, they have one of the highest paid salaries with an average of to 300,000 to 400,000 US dollars a month. So they're very well paid, and is the biggest agency of the UN with the most employees. And well, yes, please.
Can you return to that slide?
Yes.
So I think it's important to make very clear here that, so you say 25% of all UN employees are Palestinians, which is already amazing, but UNRWA has almost exclusively Palestinian employees. Practically everyone who works at UNRWA is an Arab Palestinian. Isn't this true?
Yes, exactly. That's what I say. I mean, this is outrageous in the sense that it's as if the DEA of the United States suddenly has 25% of its payroll of one of the cartels. You know, I mean, the inside people working in a supposedly neutral and global organization. I mean, it's so outrageous that they have so many people. I mean, it's a great conflict of interest.
And it's probably also important to point out that UNRWA, so only the Palestinians have a refugee agency or a UN agency dedicated only to them. They're the only people in the world that has a specific UN agency only for them. So it seems like, you know, either the UN really loves the Palestinians, or they really hate the Jews, and this is a way of putting pressure on Israel, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's definitely it. And not only that, I mean, it's also full of perverse incentives, because this is the only law in the world. I mean, I'm talking about the refugee law, where it's by heritage, the status of refugee. So this means that originally the Arab population that claims to be a refugee in the conflicts after the war, that actually these 6 Arab countries invaded Israel when the UN declared the 2 states. Well, these numbers were about, I mean, depends who gives you the numbers, but 300,000 to 700,000 Palestinians. And now you are talking about 6 million of Palestinians, 9 million Palestinians if you take account communities abroad. So it is the only conflict in the world where there's more refugees year by year, because they have a differentiated law. And this means the UNRWA needs more employees and more budget per refugee. So it's an agency that continuously grows economically and needs more budget and needs more employees. So not only is the biggest right now, but it's constantly growing because of this. You can see as a differentiated or discriminatory law to favor certain conflict and certain people.
Just before we move on to the next topic, I want to make clear to everyone that the reason there are so many Palestinian quote unquote refugees is that the UN defined an Arab Palestinian refugee as anyone who had been living, anyone who is not a Jew, right? Anyone who's a Muslim, an Arab or Muslim, who had been living in Mandate Palestine, British Mandate Palestine, just 2 years before the war of 1948. So if you arrived, say, from Algeria in 1946 as an immigrant, right? You're a Muslim immigrant from Algeria, and you landed in British Mandate Palestine in 1946, then you're considered an Arab Palestinian refugee, and so are all of your descendants. Okay? So if you arrived in 1946 and then in 1948, in the War of 1948, you emigrated to Turkey or Chile or wherever, you're still considered a Palestinian, and so are all of your descendants. They're all considered Palestinian refugees. That's why there's so many Palestinian refugees. And this is a definition of Palestinian refugee that has never no the UN has never used a definition like this for any other people in any other context. And the effect of it is to make gigantic the population of people who can present grievances against the state of Israel according to this grammar. So this should also be understood, because the entire policy is skewed against Israel in ways that are never, these policies are not implemented anywhere else for any other people.